Okay, we're going to get started. Just would like to welcome everybody to the Womxnhouse Tuesday Talk series. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Asia. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to Lauren for being a part of this. My name is Dalia Reyes. I am an artist and also the director of contemporary art at Gallery Camille in Midtown Detroit. And I will be interviewing the amazing Lauren Namdi. And I wanted, Lauren, if you could introduce yourself and just kind of start off like a little bit of your story, your backstory.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Womxnhouse Asia. I want to thank you for inviting me here today and being amongst the beautiful panelists that you've had, Sabrina, Elena, and all the other women that I saw on your roster. It's truly an honor. Asia and I go way back to hanging out in Brooklyn and just living our best artistic lives out there. And Dalia, I want to thank you, for your time. And I'm just really happy to be here. So my name is Lauren Namdi. I am from Detroit, Michigan. I'm now in Miami, Florida. Currently sitting in Namdi Contemporary, which is run by my husband, Jumani Namdi, and myself. And we are just elated to show you all a little bit about what we do and tell you a little bit about my story. So I think I kind of want to work a little backwards, kind of get the momentum going on the talk. I want to show you just a brief video. This is a video of an exhibition that we had of Stephan Arbois. Stephan Arbois is a mixed media artist based here in Miami, Florida, but originally from New York, but he's of Haitian descent. He's using coffee as his main sort of medium, and he is doing just amazing things with his practice. So this is a video of an exhibition, his first solo exhibition here that we did. This was right before COVID. So this was a huge event. It was a beautiful, and then the world shut down. So I guess this was how we kind of ended the scene. So I'll start with the video, and then I'll kind of go into my backstory about how this all came to be.
Thank you. That looks so fun. It looks so good. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So that again, that was from an exhibition that we had. So just kind of working backward. I am from Detroit, born and raised. I grew up attending, many exhibitions at the Detroit Institute of Arts. A really fond memory was the Heritage House, run by Mrs. Love, in one of those old, beautiful homes down in Midtown. I would take pottery classes. And it was really a special place. Both of my parents, appreciated the arts. My mother, would take me around to all of the galleries and the patrons, and I was always inspired. I don't remember not being involved in art or being inspired by art. I wasn't good in math, so I knew any route down the doctor route wasn't going to go. My father is an attorney. He's a great storyteller. That's a gift that he has. And I knew that law wasn't going to be my direction either. But, art was something that I always loved. I loved every aspect of it, the creativity, just the freedom of it. And my parents nurtured that. And I appreciated them for supporting that, at a very young age. I would take classes at Center for Creative Studies during the summer. Carol Mariso, who's a prominent artist there in Detroit. I'm always looking at her work, from a child. Leroy Foster, he had painted portraits of a lot of family members and, meeting him.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was, and just being around him, all of my life and just seeing his craft and just seeing the lifestyle, I was like, I just knew it was something that was calling me. And I ended up going to Liggett for my early education through high school. And there, it's a small private school, but they too were really nurturing in my artistic craft, because they saw my math grades and they were like, you just keep drawing and painting, Lauren, because this is what makes you happy. They really, really nurtured that though. But they all knew that I wanted to do interior design. And so they would kind of craft some projects to cater towards that. Or if I was doing a still life, they would put like a little more emphasis, on that for me. And then when we had kind of like free time to just kind of paint and draw, they were just like, Lauren, do some interiors. And so the drama teacher at Liggett had actually introduced me to AutoCAD. Now this was like back in the 80s, and AutoCAD was really rudimentary and pure, like true, like just pure lines. You're kind of moving like a square around. But he said, you should consider like doing set design. So I would read these plays and then I would design the sets for the plays. So he kind of, just kept that spirit of me wanting to do interior design and still be a creative. I remember painting a picture of a fish that I just loved dearly. And the headmaster at the time of the school had picked my painting to hang in his office. So that was like the big honor, like the headmaster, like your painting's gonna be in his office. And to this day, he still has that painting. He's no longer, running the school, but every time I see him, he's like, Lauren, I still have your painting. So it means a lot, that they too, saw, that my passion, for art and, supported and nurtured that. After I graduated, I went to Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was a fine art major. At the time, they called it studio art. And I basically, they teach you all the disciplines, painting, sculpture, drawing, photography, printmaking. But by your senior year, they want you to kind of hone in on something. And at the time, I wanted to paint. But I still wanted to do interior design. So they said, just paint some interiors. So my whole thesis was about abstract interior spaces. I just kind of made collages. And although they didn't have a design program at Spelman, they still were like, this is the background. Like, you need to just know the basic elements of design. You need color, you need perspective. So it was a really good stepping stone, you know, before getting into the actual practice of interior design. You know, I had great teachers at Spelman, Charnel Holloway, Arturo Lindsay, and the late Toby Martin, and they all were just very nurturing. You know, Spelman wants to build you up as a person. They want to build you up as a woman, as a Black woman, and they love you. You know, they just want to support you, and they just want you to succeed. And then I got to New York, and I went to grad school at Pratt, and it was the complete opposite experience. You know, the love, the nurturing. I'm like, where's the warm and fuzzy? You know, like, I can do anything. They're like, no, we're here to kind of weed you out, because, you know, once you kind of get in that design field, it's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of.
Is it really cutthroat?
It was more, the students were not cutthroat. We were very much friends. We were very much supporting each other. I would say it was the administration that was a little more cutthroat, that was trying to really intimidate you, you know? So there was a year called the qualifying year, and basically they just kind of like, they just throw everything at you, you know, and like, can you handle this? Can you stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning? Can you go with no sleep? Can you design, you know, this home? Can you design a pool? You know, just all these kind of abstract things that you're like, I'm just trying to like learn some of the basics, but really they're just trying to filter you out, because in the real world, you know, you have like serious deadlines, you got crazy clients, you know, and so I think it prepared you for just, you know,
instilling that cutthroat work ethic of like, it's going to be competitive out there, so you better be ready for that.
Right. So I don't think I appreciated it at the time, because I was really like, you know, you just love me, like, this is me. They're like, no, Lauren, like, but our friends, our community of, you know, designers, you know, we were really close, and, you know, our late night studio hours are very memorable, you know, so I wouldn't trade it for the world now. And it was really kind of my ticket. Like, once I graduated from Pratt, I got a master's in science in interior design. It was kind of like a golden ticket. Like, anywhere I went to interview, they're like, you went to Pratt? I was like, yes, not knowing a lot, but I got the job. So one of my colleagues from Pratt actually got me my first job. She was working at a design firm doing corporate interiors. And so I didn't know anything, you know, I knew like some of the basics, but CAD in school, and CAD like really being billable and getting paid to do this was a totally different thing. But my colleagues were, again, just willing to like help me. They knew I was a young designer. I'm 25 years old at the time, you know, so as long as you were kind of willing and open to learn, they're willing to teach you. As long as you're willing to like spend those late hours, you know, kind of doing some of the dirty work before you get to like the pretty glamorous presentations, you know, they were willing to help you out. So it was beneficial, you know. And I was at that firm for about 4 years, and we did corporate interiors for Bank of America. So it was at the time we kind of learned about the change in like a work environment. You know, you're going from like cubicles where they're like high walls and there's no kind of interaction between your colleagues, to like an open floor plan where you see everybody, you know, where
yeah,
and going to lunch and who's on the phone. And so I was learning about just the different the workspaces and how people are practicing, you know, in those different workspaces. So after that, it was around 2008, you know, the dynamics of the world were shifting a little bit. Projects were slowing down at the bank, and a recruiter called me and said, hey, you know, have you ever thought about doing project management? And I was like, I don't even really know what that is. He's like, well, it's for British Airways. I was like, yep, I know exactly what project management is. I'm more than willing to do that. And so the recruiter said, the person you're interviewing with is really, really busy. So if I call you, you got to be ready to go to that interview. So no problem. I'm in my office doing my little design work, wearing some like crazy artsy outfit. And he calls like 6 o'clock. You got to be in Queens. I was like, but I'm not really dressed. He was like, you got to figure it out. And I just didn't have anything ready. So I went to the Gap. I bought like a little like button down shirt and like a little sweater, but I had on like a leather pants and like fishnets and like boots. I was like, he's gonna have to like take it or leave it. So I show up at the interview and it was, you know, in the evening, and we talked and he was like, I like you. He's like, I'll teach you whatever you need to know. Because it was really about the personality, you know, again, being open and receptive to learning, and, you know, just the personality, like, can we work together and can we, you know, build, you know, our department and make it better. And, you know, that's what we did together, which was great. So after that, kind of got out of my comfort zone, you know, with British Airways and traveling the world. I got to go to Korea, all over the Caribbean. I was managing I was over the design of the passenger lounges, like the business class, first class lounges. And I really had no idea. It was totally different from like a Delta Sky Lounge. I was like, wait, this is what happens in first class? I mean, full dinners. I mean, just all the amenities, you know? And an opportunity came up. They said, we need some art. And I was like, well, I know who to call. So I was like, Jimani, get it together. Let's come on to Newark, because I got a huge project. So he came out and installed, we had some Ed Clark prints in there. We had Juan Logan's work. It was phenomenal, you know, and no one knew until I gave them, you know, all the bios that these were all African-American artists. So it was amazing, you know, to just have this collection, you know, within the British Airways Lounge in Newark. And now it's part of their collection. Amazing. So whether or not they change it, it's still like always going to be in their body of, you know, British Airways art collection. So that kind of is bringing me kind of back into the art world, you know, and connecting me back with the Nnamdi family. So I was there for about 5 years, and I ended up moving back to Detroit and worked for a corporate real estate firm. And that was all through like a family friend. So that's another great lesson, you know, just making sure you remain in contact, you know, with your people, with your village, the people that have always supported you. And my parents, you know, are my number one, you know, team. So they're always like, Lauren needs jobs, trying to move back to Detroit. And, you know, we had a great friend, Douglas Diggs, that put in a good word for me at Jones Lang LaSalle. And I met with like 5 different interviews. And again, it was more about like, can we work with you? Like, you're from Detroit, you're just moving back, you're kind of new to this whole construction world in Detroit. And this was 2013. So Detroit was just kind of like ramping up before Dan Gilbert like bought everything. You know, we were all kind of like competing, right, you know, who's going to move into, you know, which building. But it was great to see, you know, Detroit really, all the love like being poured back into these old buildings at Capitol Park, just throughout downtown. And so I loved it. So I was kind of like the #1 Detroit girl. So every Detroit project, from Detroit Institute of Music, Jones Day was moving in, Amazon was coming in. They're like, Lauren, you're on it, you're on it. So I loved it, you know, and I like being a part of it because it, you know, it was, you know, my hometown. And, you know, it's a special place when you see everything looking more beautiful, like they're tarnishing off, you know, all the old copper and everything is like coming back alive. So it was really special to you know, to be a part of that back in Detroit. And then I was there for about 5 years and reconnected with Jimani, and we decided to start a family, you know? And so he was down in Miami, and he had just, he'd been there about 6 years in Wynwood with the gallery there. And so your
family looks amazing, by the way, all over Instagram. I'm
just
this is the funnest family.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to say that. The cutest kids. Okay, keep going.
I appreciate it. So, so my job had transferred me down here, and I was doing some work with cruise lines. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, you're in Florida, like, why not work for the cruise lines? So I was doing project management with them, and it just was a different dynamic. You know, I think Michigan, you know, there's like good roots and people are just great quality people. And Miami, it was kind of a different ballgame. And I just moved here, so I didn't know anything. Barely knew.
Is
like,
it more competitive?
It was
less
competitive.
community-minded?
Yeah, the brokers were just, I would say, almost kind of bullyish. And I was expecting kind of, again, like the nurturing, like, I'm here to learn, help me out. But instead, they were very like closed. You know, they were very much like, I can't share my list of good contractors. And I'm like, well, we're all working for the same company and this is our client. But it ended up just kind of not being a really good relationship. So Jemani one day was like, well, just quit. And I was like, here's my 2 weeks notice, you know, here you go. But it was very hard for me, you know, resigning from that job, because in Detroit, you know, I had felt really passionate about it and I loved what I did. But if you're not feeling successful and people aren't helping you grow and to be successful amongst the whole company, you know, that's a problem. And so we decided, you know, I would work with him, and that was 6 years ago now, I guess, which is kind of crazy to imagine that. So as you saw in the video, that is the gallery space in Miami, in Little Haiti. So we moved from Wynwood, and I don't know how many of you all had opportunity to been to Wynwood, but it was the kind of the center of the galleries and artists and muralists and just like a really interesting place like Soho was, you know, in New York, founded by the same person.
Total hotspot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then of course, everything cool when the artists come, then the developers come, and then it changes the dynamic, you know? So your old deli now becomes a Chase Bank, or your old gallery is now a Foot Locker, you know?
Right, it's less like artist friendly, right?
Exactly. So the rent goes up, and then you start losing those creatives because they're like, I can no longer be creative when I'm in an environment that's, you know, I'm struggling to even pay my rent, you know? So, you know, we got an opportunity to purchase a building in Little Haiti, and Little Haiti is just north of Wynwood. And it's another area that's starting to develop. It's a little bit slower, but it's a beautiful community. You know, the Haitian community has been here since the 70s. And there's lots of mom and pop shops and gadgets and widgets and mill workers and flooring people. And it's just lovely. And on Sundays, there's a church that's in a warehouse and they're speaking French. And it's just, it makes you really feel like you're, you know, in part of the environment. So it's a blessing to, you know, be in this space and to be amongst, you know, these neighbors. But again, you know, it is changing. But we are trying to, you know, remain here and preserve the culture. So the image that you saw was of the show, and there was a film festival, and that was tying in the film festival, you know, to the artists. And, you know, we just are continuing to build more programs and more events, you know, like that to celebrate our artists and, you know, the practice that we do in our program down here.
I love that. And the first thing that I thought of when I saw those videos is how the Nnamdi Gallery in Miami, you know, how you want to preserve the art and the culture down there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know, like, what does it mean to you to do that? Like, as far as like with your story, with like coming from Detroit, like, do you bring the Detroit experience with you? Do you feel like, you know, the difference between both environments, and do you know, what are your thoughts about that? Like, having gone from Wynwood, now I just realized that, yeah, that must be different, you know, how that whole space has probably, like you said, become, it's changed. Yeah. And how long was that changed, you know, like in Wynwood?
I mean, it happened fast. I mean, I moved down here 5 years ago. And I mean, like overnight, you know, within a couple of years it had changed. And I mean, Jemani has been here about 10 years. And so even the images of events that he did, you know, his first Basel, you know, like the things he did, he had Erykah Badu was performing, BT had a huge tent, he blocked off the street, that is like nearly impossible for like a gallerist to do now. It's just like, I think here in Miami, it's such a young city, it's 100 some odd years old, so there's not like those kind of like stodgy kind of institutions and like thoughts here. I think people are like a little more open to like accepting someone. So I think, Jemani came down here like, hey, I'm here from Chicago, and people just gravitated. Obviously, the art is amazing, and the story and his, the history of the gallery with, his father starting the gallery in Detroit, so
in the 80s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those patrons, those great clients, those artists, we're here to support, which is great. So I feel very happy, to have opportunity to be here. But we definitely bring Detroit, as much as possible. We've got a great DJ, DJ Spivey, who's from Detroit. So we have parties, we got the house music playing. So people definitely know, we are from Detroit, but we are proud to raise our children and, have our business here in Miami, and just kind of raise awareness, of our artists and collectors, within Florida.
Can you talk a little bit about, because we talked over the phone about a little bit of like the challenges that we've faced as gallerists, as people, as that running a gallery space with the last few years with, the pandemic and the political aspect of everything that's been going on. Can you talk a little bit about how that's affected maybe your life as a gallerist, or, running the space?
Sure. I mean, I will not get into the politics of Florida because we all know our governor's crazy, so we won't talk about those dynamics. But him opening up our state, although it was very dangerous, very early, I think helped a lot of businesses, because obviously a lot of businesses, some have completely closed down, some states, have not been reopened. But, we followed the governor's guidance, and had shut down the business, for those months. But, relatively by like that summer, things had opened back up. Right. So although we weren't accepting guests like that, it was more so by appointment. You have to wear a mask when you come inside. We still were able to showcase the artists. So Jemani started interviewing the artists wherever the location was. For instance, Rashawn Rucker, who's in Detroit. So he, shot a video of him out there, and then the work was shipped here, and then we installed it like a regular exhibition. And so we basically did a whole gallery tour as if you were walking through the gallery. And it proved to be really great, because now you have a video documenting his exhibition. And then you also have the mailing list of people that we could just email this video out to. So you were able to touch even more people than having like an opening, at that time, because your mailing list has whatever hundreds of people versus, the 50 people that would have been able to come to the opening. So you're touching a lot more people. And although everyone's not purchasing a piece, at least his story is getting out. And I think it was important to still make sure the artists were able to thrive and eat, and that we were able to still tell their story, and that we were still able to, that brings us joy, to see the art, us talk about the art. Our daughter was in here. There was a piece called, Taking Flight. And so she was just kind of running through the gallery one day, and it just was like a beautiful kind of moment. She was just responding to the art that was in here. And so although we didn't have the crowds, you still like feel the impact, of their artwork there. So thankfully, we're still standing, our artists are, they've all still thriving and, creating, still amazing bodies of work. So.
Did you ever fear that like people were like over the whole gallery experience? Did you ever think of like are they still going to value this? Because I did. I was like, are people going to do things just online and
Right.
not care about this? But in the end, I realized,
right? You get comfortable like in your jammies and like, why get dressed up? You know,
well, yeah, because we started doing videos and
Right.
360s and everything to get people the information and to give the artist the proper opportunity that I mean, it's not the same because we weren't having regular shows, but
Right.
to at least give them as much promotional opportunities as possible.
Exactly.
And yeah, that was it. That was a good time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it was a great experience to have, and to also have that like an alternative, like, oh, you can't make the show, watch the video. But there's nothing like, going into the gallery, the contact, the people that you're
100%.
meeting, and to see the artwork, to see like all the texture, to see the colors. There's only so much that a picture and a video can do.
You have to experience it in person. You have
the
to.
dialogue, you see your
Yes.
friend like, oh my God, I never saw that. I didn't see that in that piece. I think it's really, it's something that you can't replace, with being online. So I'm just happy that things are returning to normal. Everyone still have to be cautious, but we're still here. And
Yeah, I know. It's been a whirlwind.
yeah, for sure.
What do you think that your gallery, like what do you envision like the future to be like as far as like the gallery experience? Like for you, is it in Little Haiti? Like, do you want to expand? Do you feel like you've had, challenges that have changed the experiences that you want, that you think, things might not work,
Mhm.
in the future? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I think we'll always have a place in Miami, a fixture in Miami, because there's so many cultures here, it's just like you're touching so many different people. The people that live here, you have tourists, you have, the snowbirds that are coming down. So I think it's important to always kind of have a base here. Detroit is wildly successful, and so Midwest is covered. They were in Chicago for 15 years, so those clients aren't going away. You just have to go to Detroit or come on down to Miami. So right now I don't have any specific plans, but I wouldn't count it out. International sounds good, with two little kids, it's something, to think about. But once they get a little bit older, I think we'd be open to expanding. But, right now this is a great fit. It's Jemani and I kind of here, and, right now this is a good size and a good program of what, we can handle right now. So.
Do you feel well adjusted to like the new trend of like the NFTs and like the digital world, and like the way that's kind of blown up with this, this crypto, like this whole thing that's happening outside of the person in real life kind of experience? Like, what do you think about all that? I'm so curious.
I think it's great. I think if that's how you want to like show your work and tell your story, me just on a personal basis, I think it's a little kind of abstract to me. I have a Samsung, so a lot of people still make fun of me for that. So I'm not as high tech, so I think the NFT is a very interesting way of telling people's story. For me personally, I don't know, it's still too like obscure to me, and the whole crypto, I see, our stadiums are getting changed to crypto. I'm seeing how crypto is really changing the face of our world. And there's another gallery here in Miami that was telling me during Art Basel that on their price list, they said they're accepting crypto. And so I was like, well, how did it go? They're like, no, it was good. Like we did what we had to do, but we immediately cashed it. Like the next day we went to the bank to cash some, like, cause we're still not really comfortable with it. So just having this money just floating, in this atmosphere, but they felt comfortable with it. It's not something that we have started. Not that I object to it. I haven't taken the deep dive into it to understand it, but we just had a conversation with an artist yesterday about it. And so I'm like, it's fascinating. It just still makes me a little nervous.
I know, it's such a interesting thing. Like there's a lot of uncertainty about it. It's really finicky, I feel like. And yeah, I would be
curious, like in schools now, people are in graduate school or in college, doing their work, if, sometimes things get lost, with the computer, like for instance, like in grad school, they taught us how to draft, by hand. So you're learning like the pencil weights, the ruler, the triangle. You're really learning how to write all over again. You're no longer like scribble scrabble, you're writing very linear and architecturally. So I thought there was like a beauty in that. It was like so beautiful to see like old blueprints and these drawings. And then when you see an actual print from AutoCAD, you're like, I mean, it's nice, but it just doesn't have like that artistic like touch to it. So that's kind of how I see the NFT. Like, I just don't see that personalization, I guess. I mean,
do you think that the technology is influencing like the craft and of the actual object, the actual piece of art, like, and how people are, or do you think it's changing the value? It's like more of this isn't a piece that you can take home, but this is just like something you can invest and kind of, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. Like people, like who are the people that buy the NFTs?
Right.
And how, like, once they get that, like, okay, so how do they showcase these things? Do they have,
how are you what if there's a crash? Like, what if just everything goes down?
Right. Does that,
and like the whole thing is like, so is your whole art collection just gone? Like,
and what are the laws with reproducing somebody's NFT? And it's really interesting to me. Exactly. And still, like you said, like a very foreign concept still, but something that I am interested in just because I'm interested in art.
Yeah. And I would love, like I like to see like what the artists are doing. I'm like, oh, I have NFT. Like, okay, I want to see it, and then I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but there's, to me, like there's nothing like experiencing the actual physical piece of art.
Yeah, and I'm a designer. I like things. I like objects. I like to place, space placing things. So I'm like, what do I do with this on my phone? Like, how do I show you, what I've just purchased? So it's more of a personal thing, but we'll see what the future.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have any advice for, like a two-part thing? Do you have any advice for people that are also into gallery work? And also, do you have any advice for artists just coming out, just because you're in tune with what's going on in Miami as far as the art and art gallery thing? Do you have any advice for people out there that are interested in this? Because I feel like it's an interesting time to be involved in this. It's ever changing and it's evolved so much. Just like Detroit has evolved, the market has evolved and people's attention to it. And people are, I feel like you said, being a little bit more, what is the word? I feel like they're not, I feel like you said like before, like we were sharing resources and maybe people are a little bit more like holding them tighter, a little bit tighter. I don't know. Do you have any advice for just the kind of mindset that would help somebody to not discourage them to be involved in the arts, because it can be so intimidating sometimes, you know?
I mean, I think, if it's your passion and you want to do it, you got to do it. So if you're interested in running a gallery or being a curator, make sure you're going to the galleries, making sure you're talking to the owners, ask them, can I help you with an opening? Can I help you during the week? Like see what the day-to-day is, because it's not, as we talked earlier, it's not all just kind of walking around and clinking glasses and stuff. It's a lot of hard work.
A lot of work. Mm-hmm.
You're painting the walls. You gotta move the art out. Jamani's renting U-Haul trucks, taking it to the storage. It's a lot of laborious work. You're a lot of written work. You have the bios. You have press releases. And then also being able to know about the artist. So I think if someone's interested in pursuing that career, you're going to different galleries, you're talking to them, you're knowledgeable about the various artists. If you want to have your own gallery, like what do you want to do? Like who do you want to represent? And I think that's really important. And then for artists, I think if you are, that's what you want to do, you got to do it, And I think for me, when I was in school, I always was like trying to just like do the assignment, it was just like, oh, you got to do still life. Okay, you got to do charcoal drawing. I don't feel like I ever took the time or advantage of the free time I had to just go crazy, just like do anything, like stop worrying about the assignment, but like mess up, like you just want everything to be perfect because you want a good grade, right? But instead of just like, you're in the studio, you're in college, you have no other obligations except to go to class and finish on time, So I'm like, why wasn't I there just kind of like throwing paint, you got Ed Clark with a push broom, you have charcoal, like, why aren't you just like going crazy and just like experimenting? Because I think sometimes people get like, oh, I'm really good at doing one thing, and then they get stuck in it and you don't even know like all the other stuff you have inside of you. And I took a painting class at Pratt, and I just told the teacher, I was like, I want to paint big, just like huge, So she's like, all right, do it. She's like, just have fun. She's like, don't worry about like what it's looking like. She's like, just use the medium, like have fun with the medium. Like you don't have a brush, use your hand, like just and see where it goes, because you start experimenting, you're like, I'm on to something, So I feel like you should just take advantage of that time. And just don't be afraid, don't hold back on what you have, but also do your research. I think a lot of these young artists, they don't know who is who from the past. I bring up people from the Harlem Renaissance and they're like, Aaron Douglas, who? Jacob, they're not studying the past. And I think it's really important because they have great stories, they have great techniques, they have great perspective, and they're talking about political things in their work that are happening like right now. So what you're painting is not some new story, because it's the same things that are happening back in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, now it's 2000s, and you're like, oh, I've done something new. Like, no, like, please go back to your book. So I think that's really important too, to just sit down.
And your research.
Go to museums and look at everything, like look at everything, the sculptures, the paintings, like reading their bios, because people have really interesting stories. People were in wars, they were on the GI Bill and got financed to do, their artwork there. So I think it's really important that, we become really educated in ourselves, as we're honing our craft, so that you can become, pretty dynamic.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you so much for saying all that. I wanted to ask you, what do you think that is there a difference through the Detroit like art community experience and what you've experienced where you are? And like, is there something that, I don't know, I think that I always think like, how can we say nicer things about Detroit at all times? Like, give us a little pep talk.
Never, ever. It's like Detroit's one of the greatest cities. I'm privileged to have grown up there and all the wonderful people and the artists. And it's a really amazing space. I would say the difference.
Would you say that it's in a unique space? Like not, because it's not like New York, and it's not like Chicago, and it's not, would you say that it's unique?
I think it's unique because it's a smaller city in regards to like New York. New York, there's like so many politics, and Detroit is, there's spaces, there's people that support you, there's money, you got all these foundations, you have grants galore, for people that are in the arts and they want to support you. So I think there's a lot of love, around the arts. I think people really appreciate the arts, in Detroit. I would say Miami, it's just a different, I think because of all of the different cultures that are here, it's different. There is a museum here, the Perez Art Museum, and they have a large fundraiser called Art and Soul. And that fundraiser is to purchase a piece of African-American art every year. And I mean, they raise millions of dollars. And then when I look back, I was on the board at the DIA, Friends of African-American Art, and we struggled to make a couple $1,000s, in our fundraisers. So I was just like, what are we missing here? Like, this is, in Miami, like the foundations are matching the donations. And, it was just a really hard kind of sell on that regard. Not to say people don't want to support it. It's just like a different kind of.
Is it a different value system, or do they not see the benefit?
Or it's just tapping the right people. Maybe, maybe it's something that we're missing and they got it here. I don't know what it is, but the first time I came here, I went to the party and I was like, wait a minute, this is unbelievable, because I was on the board for 4 years and it was like, we had all these different events, wonderful people, but I'm like, we're the map, like they're here in Detroit. I just don't know why we can't
tap in. Yeah.
Yeah, but here, it's everyone. Everyone looks different, shape, size, black, white,
Yeah.
black, Asian. It's just like, it's amazing. And they're all there to support and fund the African American Fund, which is fabulous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. That is like so interesting. And thank you so much for telling us your story. So I think we're getting like a little bit closer to the Q&A part. Did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I'll just thank you for the opportunity to tell a little bit of my story. And it's fun. I mean, it's a great business and great art world. And now we're connected, Dalia. Asia and I have been for 20 something years. So it's just nice to like, when it all keeps evolving and coming together and just a little more grown,
I think it's beautiful because I have to say, I'm such a huge fan of Asia. I'm such a huge fan of Norwest Gallery. I'm such a huge fan of the Nnamdi Gallery. And George knows, like, and I met him when I was just coming out of I was still at CCS. I was working at Kresge Arts in Detroit. And I was going to, their shows, and I think it's an amazing gallery. And this is such an honor to be a part of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
To Asia and to you for letting me participate. So thank you. It's one of those things that's in a way full circle, because I was part of, not the beginning, but just within my own personal story, going to art shows. Nnamdi was one of the first ones, like Nnamdi. And so I think, so thank you so much.
Yeah, when I came home from college, I think I talked to George and I was like, oh, I'm looking for a job for the summer. So he was like, all right, come on in. And I worked there, and just, at that time we're like sending out flyers for exhibitions, we're like, on the mailing list,
Mail them out.
Kind of grind, you kind of see the behind the scenes, before the opening happens, like all the work, that you're putting into.
That comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's been amazing because I met George before I really got into like work. I worked at a gallery before, but not until like right after I met him in like 2013 or 12 did I actually start working in galleries
Yeah,
in a real way. So I realized it's so much work
so much work.
and
He's been
and
a long time, and it's
yeah.
truly an honor to, just continue the legacy and all that he's built. This
Mhm.
was not easy, but
Yeah,
they
so thank you so much.
carry on the legacy, right, Taki?
Yeah. Well, we want to get into, we want to ask the audience if anyone has any questions right now that they want to ask Lauren or Dalia about, whatever. This is a very casual platform, a great conversation. Thank you both for, for just sharing with our Woman House artists as well as our community. Looks like Sabrina has her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I want to say thank you, Asia, for seeing the hand, and thank you, Lauren and Dalia, for the conversation that you both have. So I know that the gallery work is very difficult in terms of installing, also in terms of just corralling cats, if you will, in terms of creatives and getting them to pick up the work, getting them to drop off the work on time, getting them to figure out the pricing and the value of their work. One of the questions I had for Lauren is, do you and your husband co-curate the shows? Do you ever do an independent show that you curate on your own? Where you're picking the artist a year in advance, or you guys just do it as, you have this section of what you're supposed to do and I have this section of what I'm supposed to do, or you just work collaboratively together?
I think, we kind of, the beginning of the year, just kind of run down a list of artists, that we're looking at that we would like to show. And then, Jamani will go, make some studio visits and, talk to the artists, and then kind of understand, what story we're trying to tell, and then bring the work down. So when it gets here, I think we, work together, he'll show me a couple pieces, this work, should I put it here? So I think, we collaborate on location, where the piece should be, what's the kind of narrative of people as they're walking through the space. I think that we, kind of collaborate on, which I think, is really important, like what's going to be that centerpiece when they walk through the door, graphics, if there's text, where that's kind of going. And then I kind of help with, the opening, what's the vibe, like we got to get the music, we got to get the food, we got to get the drinks, got to get the florals, got to set the whole tone, for the experience, for the artists, to come. And obviously, we're welcoming the artists to our home. So we want them to feel pretty special. We just don't want them to walk into no music. We want it to feel very inviting, and for our guests, and patrons to enjoy that. So I think that's kind of the role, that I kind of shift into, like after, the show is hung. And, but, I think Jamani is more kind of the big picture person and does the hard work to get the work here. And then, we kind of work together to make the whole experience come together, when the show is
Thank
hung.
you for that answer. And I know you used to, I'm sorry, it's a two-part question. At one point, the gallery used to teach folks how to collect and why to collect. Do you guys still do those type of workshops in person, or do you do them online? And how do you figure out who to invite to that?
So in the last year, we've done probably a couple of years, we've done a couple. It's more so that a company will ask us, a bank, for Art Basel, UBS had asked Jamani to speak about collecting. And so he brought in Derek Adams. So we were at Red Rooster, and they had their own roster of guests. So it's kind of been like that. Different organizations have asked us to do a lecture about collecting, or maybe they have a theme. We did something for the Links about the Harlem Renaissance. We did something for Brown Advisories about collecting art. So it's been more so not like an internal thing that we are like, oh, this month we're going to talk about collecting. It's been more so people kind of reaching out to us, you know, and just us preparing, you know, a Zoom presentation such that. But I think that's something that we definitely, you know, should do on our own individually.
Hey, Lauren.
Who's that? Yeah.
Tati wants to know if you can show her piece of art that's on the wall.
Of course.
She's her 2-person exhibition with Stephen Arbois.
Oh, I see Heloisa. Hi, Heloisa. Let's see.
Mommy.
Here's Taki's piece. Yay. So Taki learned how to spray paint one of our artists earlier this year. So.
That's awesome.
No fear. and she sold the piece, so she's already accomplished artist there.
All right, are there any more questions?
If no one else will go. My name is Barris Flemings. I'm a artist and a collector in Detroit. I haven't had the pleasure yet of visiting the Namdi Gallery, but I'll definitely be putting that on my list. I was wondering if you have any other recommendations for galleries to visit, both inside and outside of Detroit. Lately, I've just been basically just soaking in the culture, trying to go to as many shows as I can, trying to expose myself to as many different artists and gallerists, I guess you would say, as I can, and just really learning about their journeys and their struggles. I started making art about 2 years ago, but I've been a creative for a while. And, you know, I've been collecting art from different ones of my friends for about maybe 10 years now. So ever since talking to Henry Harper with the Detroit Fine Arts Breakfast Club, he's kind of been getting in my ear more so about collecting for value in terms of building wealth, as opposed to just, to me, I felt like investing in artists was the value. I was like, oh, I really like what you do and I want you to keep making stuff. So let me give you money for this piece so I can share in your journey. But now I'm seeing that art actually is a very real vehicle for wealth building and things of that nature. So if you had any galleries to recommend to check out, or any artists to check out, or just do my research on, I'd appreciate it.
Are you from Detroit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, you got to step by the Namdi Center. I mean, I got to put in that plug, you know. And then obviously you've been to Asia's gallery. You know, I have not been back to Detroit in, you know, since the holidays. So I think the team here can probably speak to more of the galleries that are, you know, having some great programs in Detroit. But if yeah, go ahead, Dalia.
I was gonna say that, you know, like Namdi, Norwest, Gallery Camille, like there's like, I mean, you already do the Breakfast Club, but I think there's also like websites that have like open calls for exhibitions, but there's a lot going on, I feel like.
Art Detroit Now. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yep, that one. If you sign up for that, and it'll tell you about the openings. Yep.
Now, as far as outside of Detroit, Lauren, what would you recommend? Because I like to travel as well, so I'll book a trip to go see some art. I'll do that.
Yeah, Sabrina, you put something in the chat. I can't read it all right now, but I mean, definitely if you come down to Miami, I mean, the beauty of being in Miami is that we're the only African-American art gallery here. So there are a lot of interesting contemporary galleries in Miami that are, you know, having some great programs that show, you know, some African-American art, but, you know, we're the only Black-owned gallery here. I mean, if you're in Chicago, I mean, I don't even, the list can go on. I mean, I think you just get to a city, you know, we were just randomly in Colorado Springs, you know, in Denver. And so we just kind of Googled the art area, you know, and you find, you know, we found some muralists that were here in Miami, that have been in Detroit. So I think, you know, whatever city you land on, you know, just put it in a little chat, in a Google, and then see, you know, who's out there. But you got to start with us, and then, you know, you won't want to go anywhere.
Will do, for sure. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Good luck with everything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So as an aspiring artist, and I'm you know, just getting on the scene, you know, but I'm still badass, you know, doing my thing. I'm wondering, how would I present myself to a gallery like yours, or to any you know, established gallery? You know, what would be some of those tools to get my foot in the door? Or do you all specifically focus on just you know, like you seek out artists to exhibit? I know we do both in our gallery, but you know, what would be some advice to the young hot thing out there?
Because we do get a lot of people coming in here or email like, oh, I'm an artist, can I send you my stuff? And I say, well, have you looked at our website? Do you see the artists that we represent? Do you see, like, does your work look like some
Did you do your research? Did you do your homework?
It's not to say that they're good or bad. It's just kind of like, you know, if they're doing graffiti art or
Right.
anime, like we don't show that work. We would never, it's not never, but it's just kind of like, that's not really in the vocabulary.
I love that you're saying this so much, because this is the first thing I think of too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and then come visit the gallery, like come in the space, get on the mailing list, go to some openings, and then have a conversation, you know, with the gallery owner, because you just can't just be like, here's my body of work, you know, because it's just like, it's just too abrupt. Like, you got to kind of get to know the person, what you're doing, where you're going, like, what have you been doing before, you know, you walked in these doors, like, are you looking for me to start your career, or are you like been, you know, pursuing your own thing? Because with Instagram and all this social media, I mean, there's a great way of like showing your art, you know? So I think a lot of times, you know, we see artists, you know, that we might like on there, and we could commission them, you know, to do a piece. You know, this young lady did a piece of our daughter that was awesome, you know? It's not necessarily someone that we might give a show in the gallery, but we can definitely still support her. Like Barris, you said, you know, just collecting your friends' art, buying their art, you know, we want to support her because she's very talented, but, you know, right now it's not really fitting in what we're looking for. But I would just encourage them to do their research and then experience the gallery, visit, and then, may I have a talk with you? Can I sit down? Let's just rap a little bit, you know, about, you know, this is what I'm trying to do. And then maybe it's not a right fit for us, but I'm like, oh, hey, but I know a great guy that's doing photography. You have great photography. I think y'all should talk, you know? So I don't think we should be closed off, and we should always be willing to like help young artists, you know, but they also got to realize we got to, you know, get the right fit. You know, you want them to represent you correctly. And some artists have a lot of people on their roster, you know, so you have to look at that, you know, are they representing 20 people or 100 people? Like, when would they ever fit me in their schedule, you know, to exhibit some work? So just
Facts.
Yes, that's 100%. I love that you said that. It's just like finding the perfect fit, you know, and that requires you to go to art shows and actually experience the culture in each gallery space, so that you're not just like blindly like, hey, and then not feeling the rejection because, oh, but my art isn't accepted here. It's just, you know, it's just not the aesthetic, or, you know, whatever. And there's no hard feelings, but you can go about it in a way that you can understand that, okay, this is the kind of gallery that this is. And,
right.
You know, and I think it's so important to know that. And I agree, to educate anybody interested in exhibiting, they should, just knowing these tips is like, is so helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. This conversation was fabulous. Thank you all for coming out, checking out the Woman House Tuesday Talk series.
Thank you for Womxnhouse. Thank you, Asia.
Yes, the Woman House is a we are an artist in residency for a BIPOC women artists, and here in the neighborhood on the northwest side of Detroit, a mile from Northwest Gallery, and we're providing platforms and a space for women to create and to express themselves with freely and awesomely, okay? And so we're going to be doing this again next week. Next week we'll have Janice Bond from Houston. She's an amazing curator and just all things fabulous. So looking forward to having her. Carlotta just came in. She's at the end of the tail end. But thank you all for coming. Come back next week. And that's it, period.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Lauren. It was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Asia. Thank you for everybody.
So Lauren, I was probably
Have a
teaching
good
at your
night.
parents' house when you took classes there.
Probably were. I was there all the time. Yeah, isn't that funny? See?
All right, y'all. Peace.
Mwah.
All right, y'all take care now.
Bye.
Stay
Thank you.
blessed.